I'm Evelyn White. I am a writer, journalist. I report for the San Francisco Chronicle. I've written a book on battered black women and edited a collection on black women's health. I'm very interested in black women and our development, our growth, our healing. I think there's a lot of silence and wounding in the black female experience. My most recent book is a collection on black women's health issues. And I wanted to do it because I feel that there's a lot of silence around the wounding and the hidden injuries of black women. That the notion, the predominant notion in the culture is that black women are towers of strength. You never hear the words fragile or delicate in connection with black women. You always hear this sort of Rock of Gibraltar sort of thing. And I know that that is not the case. And so I wanted to provide an arena where black women could speak about the ways in which we've been wounded, the ways in which we are small, the ways in which we are fragile. Because we're not these superhuman beings that American society and culture makes us out to be. We need a lot of comfort, a lot of soothing, and it's very, very difficult for us to get it in this culture. And so my hope was that the book would provide a way for us to comfort each other and to break those silences about the ways that we've been hurt. To be black and female in this culture is to be always looked at as I believe some sort of inhuman tower of strength, and there is very little room for us to ever be just regular and human, and to have weakness and hurts and pains and space for us to get comfort. The construction of being black and female is very, very limited, I believe, in this culture. That black women are seen in very narrow ways. And I think it has been difficult for us as black women to break out of that. You know, that we have very little space in our community to expand from this position of always being, you know, the Rock of Gibraltar. Always someone that will take care of everyone else. You know, you can always go to the black woman, and I think it extends back to the slave era and this whole notion of the black mammy. And though that image is not as predominant of the obese, you know, black woman with the enormous bosom, you know, that's going to take care of everybody, while that image is not as predominant, I believe that sentiment still exists in this culture regarding black women, and many of the media images still, you know, border very close to this mammy business. And so it is difficult, I think, for us to find images that are more whole, more holistic, that involve us as complete human beings. That's hard for us to find outside of us, and I think it's very difficult to call forth within us, you know, from the inside, because of the day-to-day, you know, things that all, you know, women have to go through. So it is difficult to expand who we are, what we are about, what we are made of, what we aspire to be, has been very, very, very limited, I believe. In 1985, when I finished journalism school, I went to Barcelona to spend some time with a very, very dear friend of mine. And actually, while it sounds quite exotic, the trip, while I was very happy, you know, to go, I'd always wanted to visit Spain, and particularly Barcelona, but I was in a position myself at that point in my life when I needed to be comforted and healed. Earlier in the year, my sister-in-law had been murdered, and within 48 hours of her murder, my father dropped dead in Gary, Indiana. I found out that my father had died minutes after I arrived in Phoenix, to help prepare the funeral arrangements for my sister-in-law. So I never got to go to my sister-in-law's funeral. I spent the night in Phoenix and then flew back to Indiana, which is where I grew up. And as the eldest child in my family, I had to take care of this. My mother died many, many years ago. And so it was a very difficult year for me after, going through that whole sort of family tragedy. I was able to return to journalism school and complete my studies, but it was not an easy thing to do. It had an enormous emotional toll on me, an enormous physical toll. I had to contend with not only the demands of my course of study, but in this very brutal instant, I was made the head of a family of 4. So I have 4 siblings under me who, for whom I instantly became mother, father, sister, caretaker. So it was a difficult year for me. As black women and all people have difficult times. I think had the good sense to know that I needed to get some comfort where I could. So during the time when I was in school, I went over to the mental health services and saw a therapist on a regular basis. And then when I finished school, I knew that I needed to go to a place before I began work, like real work. I wanted to take a break because I knew that I had been wounded and in a very, very severe way. And so I have this dear friend in Barcelona. So she said, "Come here, I'll take care of you." And so I went to Barcelona and was very much, cared for and nurtured and soothed by this friend of mine. And I recall the time, I've thought of it often, recently, because I really was very much loved. When I first got there, I realized the enormous sort of fatigue, both the physical and emotional fatigue that I had, and I would sleep for hours. And it was beyond the sort of jet lag thing. I mean, my whole body needed to shut down. It had not been able to shut down for a year. So I got to Barcelona, and I had this big sigh of relief, and I thought, first of all, nobody in my family can find me. They can't call me, because I didn't tell anybody I was leaving. I mean, I had to flee. So I thought, no one will be able to reach me here. They can. How are they going to find me? I'm in Barcelona. So I was protected in that way. And my whole body just collapsed. And it wasn't in a sort of horribly negative, like fall apart, but it was, now you can rest. You are safe. You are protected. And so I would sleep hours and hours and hours and hours in this really thorough, wonderful, healing sleep. And I would get up, and it would be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I would go into Candace's kitchen. My friend's name is Candace, and there would be my breakfast laid out for me. There'd be like a cereal bowl and a spoon, and a juice glass and the teapot and the whole, and fruit, and it was just laid out, there waiting for me in this very sort of beautiful, Spanish style, very colorful, very elegant. And so I felt very much cared for. So it was while I was in Barcelona during this particular time that my friend Candace and her friends, primarily Catalan women there in Barcelona, said to me, "We must take you to see the Black Madonna." Now, I had no idea what they were talking about, none whatsoever. It meant nothing to me, this term, the Black Madonna. But I said, fine, sure, I want to see it. And so one day they put me in the car, and it's maybe, 45-minute drive outside of Barcelona. And I remember distinctly sort of ascending this hill and these beautiful mountains, very dramatic there at Montserrat, just visually stunning. But I still had no idea, no concept really of what it meant, this Black Madonna. So we go to this beautiful place, then there's this big sort of, space before you get into the church. And there were all of these people standing in line. And I thought, well, what are they waiting in line for? I mean, I still couldn't make the connection, you know, what it was about. So eventually I realized that they were waiting in line to see an image that looked like me. And I was completely floored. I mean, it was a very, very important moment in my life, you know, because as I stood in line, I could see these people turn around and look at me with sort of great love and affection and acceptance, you know, sort of in front of me and then behind me, you know, as the people lined up. And I could feel just a feeling I never had in my life that there was something about me. Not me, you know, Evelyn White, an individual, but me as a black woman that was coveted. And not in any, you know, perverted sexual way, not in any sort of, you know, mammy-ish, you know, way, you know, there's a black woman and she's going to take care of me. But in a way that had to do with celebration and with reverence and with power. With need, you know, with a desire to be embraced, to be protected, to it was just this amazing thing. It was a configuration of black femaleness that I hadn't seen before, though immediately I responded to it. And so it said to me that I had that history. I had that notion of myself as revered and coveted and desired in good, positive ways, that it was actually still within my body and my being, but it had never been called forth before. And of course, who or what would call it forth in American society? And so in many ways it brought me back to what I believe is my purest, most natural self. And again, not in any sort of way that's better or, you know, sort of magically invested in a way that other people aren't, but a reverence for who I am, who my people were before our history was so truncated and twisted and distorted by being taken from where we naturally came from to this country. I don't think that there's any question in its original non-distorted form that blackness is a very, very rich and nurturing image. You think about, you know, the soil, you know, and the richest soil, you know, in the Mississippi Delta, you know, it's just this black, rich, you know, fertile soil. You know, people aren't interested in, you know, burned out, barren, you know, sort of terrain. You think about, you know, oil, you know, so black gold, you know, very, very rich from the earth. You know, these things are from the earth naturally. And we know that the richest, the blackest soil gives forth the healthiest crops, you know, the vibrant, you know, fruits of the earth. So I think that is true, that in the natural order of things, that blackness is rich, that it is giving, that it is fertile. And so I think that as you said, that this desire to embrace blackness in its natural form has to do with the richness and the vibrancy and the health of blackness. But as we know, it's been distorted, you know, and I think that it is very important to get back to those notions, to get back to the natural order, that of course, you know, people in our ancestral years and heritage would covet and desire the richest black soil, because that's where they were going to get food. You know, it makes perfect sense to me. But we have to always, I think, in this society, in this culture, knock down all of the barriers, the obstacles that exist between us and nature and the natural order. There's been so much put between us and where we started from that we have to work very hard, you know, to get back to that, you know, to get back to the source. What comes to mind, again, going back to the source and what I feel inside of me, you know, which is what that experience evoked, you know, taking me back to what I feel from my very gut. My feeling is that some body, some group of bodies who knew that the Black Madonna was powerful and wanted her and needed her for comforts, for inspiration, that they probably brought her there. I don't know if it was the Moors from northern Africa or who, but it seems to me that someone needed her and took her to that area in Montserrat, where, as I understand it, she was found. I think that she was and is a treasure, and that the people who treasured her wanted her with them. When I think of the first place where she should have come from, I think about northern Africa, I think about Egypt. You know, that's what comes naturally out of my body. I think that's where she came from, you know, somewhere in northern Africa or the Middle East, where there's certainly dark-skinned people. I think, again, that we have to get away from the barriers, the things that have been set up to divide us. And I think that the way to get back to anything respectfully is to understand that we are all a part of each other, that we are all connected, you know, as human beings in this universe. That Africa is a part of the human culture, the human family of every person on this earth, just as Scandinavia is part of my culture, my heritage as a human being. We are all on this earth to live together in the most global sense. And so I think that there shouldn't have to be this separation, this notion of, oh, well, white women who worship the Black Madonna are taking over the culture of Black women, that they're appropriating. I think that's the phrase that people use a lot now, that they're appropriating something that's not theirs. Well, I don't believe in that. I believe that I don't think Mother Earth says, this belongs to you, this belongs to you, this group of people can only, you know, look at this group of people can only pay tribute to that. The natural world does not make those separations. It's people who has made those separations. And I have seen human spirits, you know, all over the world respond in human ways, you know. And so this notion that this is mine and you can't have it, I don't believe that. Because if I have something that I think is wonderful, that is helpful, that is positive, if I'm the best human being I can be, then I want to share it with you. You know, I want you to benefit from it. That's the way to connect to the human family. You know, that I want all of my brothers and sisters to be nurtured, soothed, comforted. And so I just don't buy this notion that white women cannot respect the Black Madonna, or white women have some, you know, racist hidden agenda trying to take something from, you know, Black women or African culture. I don't believe that. I don't believe that is the spirit that the Madonna evokes. I don't think that she evokes that sort of weirdness, that sort of separation. She evokes, I believe, respect, reverence, reverence, connection, so that I could stand, you know, in this place in Montserrat, you know, who knows how many thousands of miles from where I grew up as a child, and feel connection with people I had never seen before in my life. Much more connection than I felt with many people in this country. So that is what that image evoked. was a sense that I was connected to these people, that they were connected to me, that we were connected in some way to this image. And there we were, and there was nothing negative about it. There was nothing mean-spirited about it. There was nothing racist about it. It was a very, very pleasant thing, and I would encourage more people to have such experiences. I just think it speaks to the volatility of race, you know, that people are very, very, very bent out of shape about it. And that it's a difficult, delicate thing because, again, I mean, we've been so, I think, wounded by the distortions. So you begin to talk about the notion of a black woman being the mother of the world, all right? Then, like, you know, some black people can say, well, that just goes back to the mammy thing. You know, we don't want to hear that. You know, that's a distortion, that's negative, that's a stereotype that conjures up this image of an enormous black woman, you know, with a bosom for the masses. We don't like that sort of image, that's negative. You get like the white people who just can't deal with that because they think that such a construct would erase their heritage. Well, I'm German. Well, I'm Lithuanian. Well, I'm Swedish. You know, so what does that say about me? I want to have a mother. I can't conceive that my mother is some like enormous black woman from Africa. I mean, that doesn't wash. So I think, you know, that it's problematic. I think that we have to get back to, and I think it speaks to the ways in which it is very, very difficult for this culture to imagine women as anything other than sort of a physical, sort of sexualized body. And we need to go back and look at sort of womanhood and motherhood, I think, in a much more sort of natural way to destigmatize this problem that people have with oh, coming from the loins of a black woman, or, you know, well, I came from the loins of a German woman, you know. And so I think we have to open up motherhood, you know, as much more close to Mother Nature, to the maker, not only of people, but the oceans, the winds, the trees, you know, the soil. You know, we have to broaden it in that way, because I don't think people can deal, you know, with the limited constructs. It's like too sexualized for them. They can't take it. I think if you can get to this notion of the earth coming from this spirit, you know, this spirit that is perhaps probably more than likely, you know, come from the continent of Africa. That people can get into that in a better way. This notion of a natural sort of spirit, a natural form, a natural entity, a natural power. You know, the image of women in Africa has, I think, been tribalized and savagized, so that black people, many black people, don't want to connect to it, you know, that it is negative. Certainly as a child growing up, all of my images of Africa were from these Tarzan movies, you know. Black people, you know, very, very savage looking, very scary, very uneducated. Did I want to connect with that? No. So what white person with say a Hungarian heritage lineage wants to connect with that? So we've got to move away from that, or either we've got to go there and understand those cultures and get the Hollywood that has been put between us and Africa, and the richness of the tribes and their differences and their rituals. There are reasons why African people look the way they do in their natural state. But how many people in this culture have ever gone to Africa to see, to engage with African people in their natural state? Very, very few. So we have nothing but these distorted, Hollywood, racist images, and nobody wants to connect with those. So we have to, like, again, go back to the source. And we've been very much harmed by all of these things that are in the way, the artificiality of our lives. There's so many things that people believe that are complete distortions, that are creations of nothing. You know, or in many cases, I mean, created by design, you know, with malicious intent. But if you knock it down, knock it down, knock it down, I spend a lot of my time knocking down every sort of thing that has been put in front of me. You know, these masks, these distortions, to get to what is the truth. And it's a very liberating process. And if you get to the truth, it's very, very powerful. It has amazed me how few people will take the time and energy to get to the truth. And oftentimes your body, your mind will tell you if you only listen. But it's very difficult. Most people in this culture don't listen to other people or to themselves. They listen to the wrong things. They never listen to nature, you know, which will tell you everything you need to know. I would not have had that encounter. I would not have ended up in Barcelona and in turn at Montserrat had I not been moving toward a broader sense of myself. I think that I was clearly on the path of greater self-awareness, of greater self-growth, of greater self-understanding. And I think it happened because of this incredible tragedy I had, that it was a message that I had to be a different sort of black woman, that I could not pretend that I had not been incredibly wounded by this experience, that I was not going to go through my life, I think as many, many black women do, never expressing grief, never expressing sorrow, never expressing intense, you know, emotional, physical pain. So I wanted to have that experience in my life. I wanted to be able to be mournful, but not devastated. You know, because what happened to me is a part of life. You know, it happens to people each and every day. There was nothing particular about it in that way. It was not a unique experience. People are murdered every day. People die every day. It's how you deal with it. And my heritage as a black woman has been one, I think, to deal in silence, to deal in strength, to deal in a sense of, you know, I can handle this. And I wanted to change that mode of behavior for myself. And so I was called to a place where I could expand, where I was really able to reveal, I think as black women often have a difficult time doing, I was able to reveal that I had been incredibly wounded and I had come to Spain to be healed, you know, in whatever forms the country would offer me. And so the entire experience of going to Spain, of coming to know the Black Madonna, has, I believe, made me a much more human person. That I have broadened as a black woman, that I am much more able to say, to talk about the things that hurt me, you know, the things that upset me, the wounds that I carry. And as a result of that, I have been able, as we often are, when you talk about pain in an honest way, I have found it's a universal experience. We tend to think, oh, it's only me, you know, why talk about it? You know, it's negative. But it is a very, very, very deep way of connecting to people on the deepest, most authentic levels when you can reveal it in a genuine way. So this experience of expanding myself and allowing people to see my wounds, that I'm not just this totally together black woman with a string of Ivy League, you know, credentials and a whole lot of seemingly wonderful jobs. That while that is true, but I've also had a lot of suffering in my life, and that has connected me to people in very, very profound and authentic ways, and made me feel like I'm a whole person. Yes, I'm Evelyn with these credentials, but I'm also Evelyn who has suffered these experiences and integrated them into my life, healed, you know, grown more fully as a result of them. And I think that that's what people need to see, you know, that we can integrate this pain and suffering in our lives, take it in, feel it, and get comfort and connect with other people. So the entire experience has really broadened me, you know, in that way. And again, as I said earlier, to see people looking at an image that is the same as mine, and to see them looking, you know, at this image with love and happiness and exultation and desire and all, you know, honest ways, has made me feel like a better person, you know, a more beautiful person, a more giving person, a person who can provide comfort, solace, inspiration, you know, to others. It's just made me feel not alone. It's made me feel connected, you know, to these images all over the world, to these people all over the world who seek out, you know, the image. Again, it's just taken me back, as I said earlier, to a space that is clearly within me. You know, one of power, of giving, of wholeness, you know, sort of earth-based place. So I did not have any resistance. You know, while when it was first mentioned to me, I could not take it in, but I had no resistance to it whatsoever. Once I saw what was going on, I was like, oh yes, this makes sense. Of course you know, pay homage to a black image. Yes, that's a good thing to do. You know, that's a whole, healing, healthy thing to do. So the experience has made me feel less sort of shattered. I think this culture can shatter the image, the self-esteem, the aspirations of people who look the way I do. And so the experience has served to change that, you know, my image of myself, of where I came from, of where I can go, is much more connected. You know, and so I've sort of gotten American, and while I live here and I'm an African American, but this is not really the real deal in terms of who I am, who I can be. So it's helped me in many ways just get out of the loop of America, in terms of its belief system, in terms of its sense of justice, in terms of its sense of what you should do with your life. I mean, I live here, but in many ways I don't believe 99.9% of what they tell you or what happens here. Because you see people, it's so arrhythmic, life here. It is not in sync with anything, for the most part, that is natural. They tell you to go to work at like, you know, 9 to 5. Why 9 o'clock? You know, why not 11:30? Why, you know, let's find out what the natural rhythm is. You know, why eat at this time? Why get married at this time? You know, there's just so little room to hook into what is natural. And so I work on that as a result of the Montserrat experience. Even with all of this in the midst of me, I constantly look around and I go, that's not me. That has no relation to me whatsoever. Irrelevant, most of it. Having seen the black image revered, I came back to this country with a sense that, and it's so clear that people go to her because they want help, they want assistance, you know, they want protection, and they fully believe that she can provide it. you know, and I'm sure she can and does. So of course I came back here with the sense that, oh, I've got, like, you know, Sister Montserrat in my corner now, you know, and this sense that I'm just sort of showered in guidance and in direction. I mean, I have my down days like everybody, but not this sense of sort of hopelessness and despair, I think, that can befall a lot of people, because I know that there's this black image, you know, and this image is all over the world. I don't see it nearly as much as I would like to, you know, here in this culture, but I know that it exists. And so I feel, you know, protected. You know, many times I'll think about Montserrat, you know, and those mountains, and the image, and her there in the church, and all of the people, you know, lined up to bow before her. And I feel that, you know, I'm connected to that. You know, I'm connected to that sense of spiritual, you know, comfort and protection. And so it's made me feel not as scared. And I'm not by nature a fearful, you know, person, but, you know, they can put so much on you here that, you know, things are going to fall apart. But it's like things are going to fall apart in their way, you know, like the white male way. Things will fall apart if you don't have a job. Things will fall apart if you don't have a BMW. Things will fall apart, you know, if you don't get the right promotion. Well, I know that once again, that I'm not in that system. You know, and so I don't have to concern myself with things falling apart that way. What concerns me living in this culture is, well, what will happen when things fall apart for me spiritually? When I lose my faith in myself or other people, then I can call on Montserrat. You know, and have a very strong image of faith. I mean, who knows for how many thousands of years people have been making pilgrimages to these black images. They have never, ever lost faith. You know, I didn't see it, but my friends tell me about, I guess, at a certain point during the year. I mean, people literally come, you know, walking on their hands and knees from all over, you know, Spain, and I assume other parts of, you know, Europe nearby, to on these pilgrimages. So people have never lost faith, which says to me that she must have been, you know, in the vernacular, taking care of business, you know, all of these years, and giving people the help, assistance, guidance that they sought. Otherwise, somebody would have said, hey, Montserrat is not a happening thing. You know, you go and pray to her, and, you know, just nothing happens. You know, it's a waste of time. People are clearly not saying that. And so it's made me believe, you know, that I have that sort of age-old protection, support, comfort, that things will never fall apart for me spiritually, you know, which is the most important part, I think. You can have all the money in the world, but without a spirit, without a belief in something, what good is it? We've all seen people like that. They're miserable. So Montserrat and these black Madonna images have given me this feeling that things will never fall apart for me spiritually. And I think in that regard that it's almost, I can see this circle, because I think up to this point, I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but that experience that I mentioned earlier of my sister-in-law being murdered, my father dropping dead 48 hours later, was perhaps a moment in my life when I could have lost faith completely. It was a moment where spiritually I could have lost it and never ever really engaged in life in a hopeful way again. And remarkably enough, there was this intervention. I think it was a very pivotal moment for me in terms of faith, because I'm telling you, there were days when I would wake up in New York City with the journalism professor on the right hand going, Evelyn, where's your assignment? Deadline is like, 5 minutes from now. 4 siblings calling me We don't know how to pay the light bill. They're cutting off the gas. We don't have any food to eat. My poor brother, whose wife has been murdered, he's suicidal. You know, he's got an infant. He doesn't know what to do. So it was, in a real sense, it was a crisis for me, or had the potential to be a real crisis in terms of spiritual faith. And there was this intervention, you know, that turned it around completely, you know, and gave me comfort and some sort of understanding that there could be real soothing, real healing, real possibility, real sort of integration of pain. Transformation is the word I want. You know, it gave me this sense that pain and grief and sorrow could be transformed. And I clearly needed to have that. And it's like, it's a lifelong thing. I said, you know, and I mean this fully, that I don't think that I will ever break. I think if I were going to break, that was the time. You know, I mean, you never know again what's going to happen. But I'll tell you, I've been tested. And Montserrat and that experience helped me, I think, pass the test of faith, belief in transformation. I can see Montserrat in the face of many, many more black women. You know, that she's come alive in the flesh, in the faces of black women. I've begun to look at black women in a different way.